Knuckles Comic Issue 28. So Knuckles shows up at his mother's house and hugs her, although I didn't like it because he looked way too tall and stuff there. And another thing about the art is that his eyelids are skin colored, which is really distracting, makes him look off-model. But now for what actually matters. His mother is shocked when he asks what his parents did on their first date, because he doesn't know the first thing about dates himself. I guess with the whole anti-technology thing, he's never watched TV, which is kind of a valuable guide to social conventions, so I'm not sure why they had to ban that. But yeah, I like this. She's having a real motherly moment with him by giving him advice like this. She says that on a date, people get to know each other. Locke had taken Lara on a picnic, and actually read her some poetry. I never pictured him to be the type. So I guess he was a little more artistic as a teenager. And Knuckles is a good audience surrogate here because he's surprised too. Lara is shocked at how Knuckles' date is on Friday because that'll ruin the surprise if he goes out on the same night, although she then realizes it could be a good way to kill two birds with one stone. She shows up at Julie's apartment, and Julie is embarrassed, saying that her apartment isn't normally this messy, being honored that Lady Lara Lee came to visit her. So again, another relatable, normal girl moment for her. She's surprised that Lara didn't come to discourage her, and she gave Julie Sue some specific plans to make their date a great one instead. That's a good mother for you. We then see the Chaotix talking, seeing a weird-looking girl holding Charmy's hand in a thought bubble, and I like that SBO says that Vector deserved Knuckles attacking him from the way he treats Julie Sue. Mighty then stands up for Julie a little, saying that she doesn't even have to go out of her way to annoy him. After SBO says that Vector doesn't get along with anyone, Mighty shows himself as the type that just wants everyone to get along. It's nice that Knuckles and Vector apologize to each other and make up, and so fast at that. Locke is smiling at seeing video footage of Knuckles and his friends happily getting along, which is nice. And then he gets a transmission from his ex-wife, who says she's not here to argue with him, and simply wanted to know his plans on Friday. Locke then has a lovable, incompetent, bubbling dad moment, saying that he posted a reminder to himself about it, but forgot what it was he was reminding himself about. And Lara deadpans, "That sounds like par for the course." She then explains that this Friday is actually Knuckles' 16th birthday. Wait, I thought Knuckles was supposed to be a year older than Sonic. In this universe, he's younger. Anyways, Lara thinks that Knuckles would love to see Locke among the people at the surprise party that Win her are throwing for him. Doesn't she think her son would like a little privacy for his first date? No? Guess not. He goes up to Julie Sue for the date, and she says that a friend of her is getting a poetry recital at the Commons Halls today. You really think a guy would be interested in poetry? And man, I really don't like the way he looks in this panel, where he mentions that if he had known he was traveling across town, he'd have brought Archimedes. He says that he wouldn't expect Julie Sue to be the type to go to a poetry hall. Unfortunately, Knuckles isn't annoyed at the surprise party. After a weird-looking, large-looking Vector dances with the Goose Girl, Lara and Locke tell Knuckles while hugging him that they're both going to be there for him again. And so is Win. Thankfully, Knuckles doesn't get angry and make a big deal out of Win being there for him, and instead goes dancing with Julie Sue, and is even gutsy enough to dunk and kiss her, even though he was a little shy and nervous about having a girlfriend before. Fortunately, there's a backup story that makes up for this. Behind that vault Mighty opened was Ray holding onto a jewel for dear life, and Mighty for some reason had thought he was dead, even though the whole reason he went on this adventure was in the hopes of saving him. Fiona shows annoyance at Nicolette saying the treasure was hers and not necessarily theirs, implying that she's suspicious of her abandoning her for the treasure, potentially. And it turns out Ray's been here since they thought he disappeared. It seems to Ray like it was only hours ago when Sonic, Mighty, and him headed over to Robotnik's lab. We see Sonic saying that Fiona's there just like he told Mighty, but Fiona's right next to Robotnik, who wonders if Sonic's related to Uncle Chuck and tries to blast them all with swap bots immediately. While Sonic and Mighty were drawing their fire, Ray made his way to the device connected to Fiona as planned, stole the Power Stone, and the next thing he knew, he had disappeared. I was pretty confused about what the hell happened here after they failed to rescue Ray. Mighty's confused that he didn't come through the zone with them, and Sonic asks in a panic where Ray is, so I guess he is Ray. Mighty says to Ray in the present day that Sonic and him had been just about to tear into the robots when they realized Ray didn't come back with them. But I thought they saw Ray vanish right in front of them. Why are they surprised by this? Then Robotnik panics at Mighty's rage and sets the robots from stun to full force. Why did they have an option for stun? He doesn't need them alive to roboticize them, does he? Mighty creatively reflects the lasers by holding the robot in front of him, but what Robotnik was actually doing was buying time so that he could put Fiona aboard. They had tried to save her, but they were too late. Oh, so it wasn't like they were just going around the camp, liberating everyone easily one at a time, just happened to miss one. Fiona was actually kidnapped, and he left with her. So it makes more sense that they weren't able to save her then. So now Fiona thinking they abandoned her doesn't make as much sense, unless there are abandonment issues from, I think, her parents leaving her really runs that deep. I mean, how could they have possibly saved her? They didn't know where she was being taken. Of course, Fiona saw a robot duplicate of her being made, but then once again, Robotnik decides not to roboticize someone. Note that the whole plot of the story arc hinges on this, and instead he left a perfectly good potential robot to rot in a cell, with their only company being robots. Eventually, she realized no one would be able to find her, so she secretly began to dig a tunnel. And 2 long, painful years later, she awesomely clawed her way out of there. Wait, how? First of all, how'd she survive for 2 years with no food, water, toilet, or anything? I mean, she said that she was left to rot in a cell, so that would mean she wasn't being taken care of. But I guess she was, and that's what the robots were there for. Again, why would he bother spending the money keeping her alive when he could have just roboticized her? Her whole reason for not being roboticized rests on a giant plot hole. And second, how none of the robots noticed her making a tunnel no matter how big it got. Did she hide it behind a poster like Shawshank Redemption, somehow hanging it up on the wall from the wrong side of the wall? Once she finally got out of the prison that was shoddily built enough to be escapable for some reason, she immediately met Nicolette, and surprisingly her first reaction was one of compassion, where she says that she's not safe scavenging around these parts. For once, she listened to her, and they've been working together ever since. Notice, ever since. That'll get contradicted later. So, was she leaving out some important details? I wouldn't blame her. But yeah, I like the "for once" there. It implies that their friendship was an annoying one where Fiona wasn't listened to ever, and I can definitely relate to that. Ray says he's happy for them, but is still stuck between zones, so he's compassionate. I'm guessing that space is outside the passage of time, and that's why he was able to survive in there with no food or water, just hanging on to the power gem for years. It wasn't years to him. Nicolette saves him with a shot set on stun, and with that, the story ends. So I guess Fiona kept hanging out with Nicolette, and that's what happens to her after this. This story was written by Ken Penders, and basically involves a surprise party with dancing being organized to make Knuckles and Julie have a better date. That's all there really is to say about it. It's a light-hearted story of downtime that doesn't really happen often enough, where they finally start to become a little more than friends. The only major issue I have with it is a superficial one that unfortunately I can't get out of my head when I think about this issue. The art. Knuckles looks really weird sometimes. I have a hard time recognizing that it was him sometimes. I don't know what they were thinking. Too tall and occasionally has too much of a neck, and his eyelids are skin colored. It's weird. And what is with Vector with that goose lady there? I mean, you know the art is bad when even I complain about it. But whatever. That's purely superficial and has nothing to do with the actual story, which was alright. Just not as good as the previous one. I mean, I'd say that, in fact, this was the second worst issue in the comics so far. I really hope next issue will finally follow up on the whole, "Oh yeah, Dark Legion android was made a candidate for the High Council" plot point just got swept under the rug when Knuckles saw his father again. The only truly good part of this issue was the backup story, which has Ray being reunited with Mighty for being stuck in between zones, and has it finally be explained what had happened to Fiona. She somehow expected people to be able to rescue her from her cell despite nobody being able to know where she was, and held it against Mighty for not saving her when they had gone out of their way to do so before she was put on the airship. But again, if she was abandoned by her parents, I could understand her having that kind of paranoia and bitterness at anything remotely resembling being abandoned and forgotten happening to her again. It would be way easier for her to believe that it happened again because it already happened to her before. That's a fascinating part of her character. Like, she's got issues like that. My question is, well, one, why the hell Robotnik didn't roboticize all the people in the slave camp, or at least Fiona, who was a sitting duck, making him keep her alive pointlessly for years. But 2, how Nicolette even knew about the jewel to be able to have the story arc happen to begin with. I know that this was a jewel mining slave camp, but how'd he know that the jewels would be here, instead of being used by Robotnik far away from here?